I had kept my family in the dark about my little experiment, taking an entry-level sales job at my uncle's subsidiary firm just to see how the real world operated. I also happened to drop $25,000 on an elite, invite-only personal training membership at the foundry. When the new girl in the office found out about the gym, she went absolutely ballistic. She pointed a French manicured finger right in my face, screaming that my parents must be cursed to have raised such a financially reckless, ungrateful brat. She loudly accused me of funneling dirty money, claiming the only reason a girl like me would work out at a place like that was to dress like a slut and trap a wealthy man. Then she played her trump card. She boasted that she was the daughter of the CEO, Jonathan Stewart, and even she wouldn't dare spend money so frivolously. She demanded to know who the hell I thought I was. She actually grabbed my arm, threatening to drag me down to the gym to cancel my membership, vowing to teach me the lesson my parents never did. I just stood there, completely stunned. Jonathan Stewart is my father's identical twin brother. He is notoriously fiercely single. He has never been married. I had absolutely no idea where this embarrassing, unhinged daughter had crawled out from. 25 grand on a gym membership? Have you completely lost your mind? That's what your parents probably make breaking their backs in a decade, and you're in here playing dress up as a socialite? When I didn't respond immediately, lost in the sheer absurdity of the moment, my new coworker, Violet, mistook my silence for shame. The corporate culture here has always been grounded. Humble, she sneered, pacing the aisle between the cubicles so everyone could hear. I've seen dozens of girls exactly like you. You think you can just sleep your way to the penthouse? Before I got here, people like you were turning this company into a joke. But I'm here now, and I won't sit back and watch it happen. Sleep my way to the top? If that were the case, I wouldn't have gone through the trouble of anonymously submitting my resume for a grueling entry-level grind. My uncle loved me like his own daughter. If I asked for a penthouse in Tribeca tomorrow, the deed would be in my name by noon. I wrenched my arm out of Violet's grip, my brow furrowing. I spend my own money. Since when does my bank account require your auditing? Instead of backing down, Violet escalated. You're going to refund that membership to my card. I'll hold the money in escrow for you so you don't blow it again. She demanded, her voice dripping with venomous authority. And stop bringing that cheap, desperate energy into this office. Who are you trying to seduce? My father? Let me tell you something, you little gold digger. There isn't a man in this company with more old money than him. As long as I'm breathing, you won't get anywhere near him. A sharp, incredulous laugh escaped my lips. You are really committed to this bit, aren't you? The Academy owes you an Oscar. Beside me, Sophie, the only co-worker who had shown me genuine kindness, tugged frantically at the hem of my silk blouse. Gemma, please, just let it go, Sophie whispered, her eyes wide with panic. She really is Mr. Stewart's daughter. The last top sales rep who crossed her got fired on the spot. We can't afford to mess with her. I wasn't about to buy into this collective delusion. I refused to believe this girl had the power to crush me under her designer knockoff heels. I rolled my eyes. Just because she says she's his daughter, you all blindly believe it? I could say I'm his niece. Where's the proof? I brushed past Violet and sat at my desk, but the hushed, mocking whispers of the peanut gallery immediately filled the room. Is Gemma insane? Demanding Violet prove her own father is her father? Everyone knows about Violet and Mr. Stewart. If she had half a brain, she'd be begging for forgiveness right now. Someone needs to learn her place. Sophie slid her phone onto my desk. On the screen was Violet's pinned Instagram post. Mr. Stewart personally dropped her off on her first day, Sophie whispered. I stared at the screen. It was a photo of Violet, her arm looped affectionately through my uncle's. I was paralyzed by a cold wave of shock. Violet's caption was nauseatingly sentimental, Daddy's spoiled girl. I promise to work hard and never let you down. #legacy. It took me only a few seconds to deduce what was actually happening. My uncle possessed the kind of quiet, devastating charisma that could rival a Hollywood leading man. People were always asking for photos with him at galas and charity dinners. When he was in his 20s, he experienced the great tragic love of his life. After she passed away from cancer, something inside him locked away forever. He became Manhattan's most famously untouchable, ascetic billionaire. Married only to his empire. There was no physical way he had a daughter this age. If I hadn't intimately known the ghosts of his past, her little performance might have actually fooled me. Seeing that Violet was spiraling into a power trip, and noting it was nearly 5 o'clock, I grabbed my gym bag and stood up. Just as I reached the door, I heard Violet barking into her cell phone. I want Gemma relocated immediately. Send her to the Seattle branch for 2 months. Better yet, just get her out of this city. I'll show her who runs this place. I let out a soft, dismissive scoff. But the moment my foot crossed the threshold, my phone violently shattered the silence. Gemma, pack your bags. You're flying out to the Seattle office for a 2-month field assignment. It was Derek, our smarmy vice president. I kept my voice perfectly level as I ended the call. though a tempest of anger was brewing beneath my ribs. Violet crossed her arms, looking unimaginably smug. I told you. You don't deserve that kind of luxury. Since you wouldn't listen, I had to make sure you'll never step foot in that gym again. My father only has one daughter, and he spoils me rotten. Whatever I ask for, he makes happen in under 5 minutes. Do you believe me now? When I remained silent, analyzing the variables of this sudden betrayal, her arrogance swelled. If you get on your knees and apologize to me right now and promise to wire that 25 grand into my account, I might ask my dad to rescind the transfer. You can stay in your little apartment and live your pathetic little life. The office erupted into a chorus of sycophants. We warned you, Gemma. Violet has the ultimate backing. You just had to touch the stove to see if it was hot. Just be obedient. Violet takes care of her people. Cross her, and she'll end your career. You're eating the crumbs off her family's table, Gemma, yet you tried to outshine her. Look in the mirror. Exactly. What kind of good girl spends that much time at a luxury gym anyway? Clearly, her mind isn't on the company. The sheer volume of their malicious, deeply misogynistic venom snapped something inside me. I shot a glacial glare across the bullpen. There are cameras in this office. You want to keep spewing defamatory slander? Because my lawyer would love to hear it. The sycophants visibly recoiled, their mouths snapping shut. But Violet stepped forward, dripping with fake sympathy. I'm only doing this for your own good, Gemma. The job market is brutal right now. Where else are you going to go? She reached out, attempting to grab my hands in a faux sisterly gesture. I've always felt a connection with you. If you just admit you were wrong today, we can still be best friends. I picked up the iced Americano from my desk and launched the contents directly at her chest. I don't recall ever scraping the bottom of the barrel for friends like you, I said, my voice eerily calm. You took a photo with Mr. Stewart. Congratulations. Stop pretending you wear the crown. The dark espresso bloomed violently across Violet's pristine white designer dress. She shrieked, stomping her feet, pointing a trembling finger at me as a string of obscenities flew from her mouth. I didn't have the patience for her theatrics. I pulled out my phone and dialed my uncle's private number, needing to hear the truth straight from his mouth. I'm calling Mr. Stewart right now to report someone dragging his name through the mud. The line rang, and went to voicemail. I tried twice more. Nothing. Even the coworkers who had stayed quiet couldn't help but pity me now. Gemma, stop embarrassing yourself. Mr. Stewart is the chairman of a global conglomerate. Why would he pick up a call from a junior sales rep? His number is listed in the executive directory, sure, but the only person here who has ever actually gotten through to him is Violet. Just stop acting. At that precise moment, Violet pulled out her own phone, her eyes locked onto mine with a predatory gleam. Nice try, I thought to myself. Let's see how far you take this charade. But a second later, the air was knocked from my lungs. The call connected. The voice pouring through the speaker was undeniably my uncle's. A cold dread coiled in my stomach. Violet, is something the matter? Daddy, her voice morphed into a sickeningly sweet infantile whine. I just missed you so much. Are you coming home for dinner tonight? I have a business dinner. Next time. Later, at the foundry, those words played on a relentless loop in my mind. I knew that voice better than my own. It was Uncle Jonathan, but why did she call him Daddy? And more importantly, why didn't he correct her? Did my uncle actually authorize my banishment to Seattle? My personal trainer had to correct my form 3 times before I finally dropped the kettlebells and punished myself with a brutal 5-mile sprint on the treadmill. Sweating and breathless, I stepped off the machine, intending to call my uncle again. But as I approached the lobby, I heard a familiar grating voice. There's a member here named Gemma. I'm here to process the cancellation of her account, Violet demanded, glaring down at the young receptionist. The girl looked entirely bewildered. Ma'am, cancellations require the member to be present with their ID. Violet slammed her hand on the marble counter. Get me your manager. Do you want to stay in business? I can have this place shut down by tomorrow morning. Before the poor receptionist could hit the panic button, I stepped out of the shadows. Nobody is touching my account. Violet flinched, genuinely startled to see me. Why aren't you on a plane? You were supposed to land in Seattle an hour ago. I wiped my face with a towel, offering a cold smile. The Crestview account is in its critical negotiation phase. If I leave now, I'm just handing my commission over to someone else. I'm not stupid. Violet's face contorted through shades of red and purple. You're a subordinate. Defying a direct executive order is insubordination. You're completely out of control. Because I was a VIP member, the commotion had drawn the attention of Roxy, the club's owner. Sensing an audience, Violet puffed up her chest. I am Gemma's superior. She is under investigation for embezzling corporate funds to pay for this $25,000 membership. I demand you wire the prorated amount to my account immediately, or I will involve the authorities. A visceral disgust washed over me. Roxy, please ignore her. She's completely unhinged. This has nothing to do with my company. Roxy, a formidable woman who had dealt with every breed of entitled elite in the city, looked Violet up and down. Ma'am, Roxy said, her voice like steel, even if you are her boss, how she spends her time and money outside of office hours is her business. If you genuinely believe she committed corporate fraud, I suggest you call the police. Fine, I'll call them right now. Do it, I challenged, pulling out my own phone. Let's get them down here. The sheer panic in Violet's eyes was impossible to hide. The bluff had been called. She spun on her heel, her face burning, and marched toward the glass doors. You're going to regret this, Gemma. I'm going to make you pay. I offered a dismissive wave. I'll be waiting. The very next morning, she delivered on her threat. I was halfway through my commute when the email from HR hit my inbox. To all staff, Gemma has been terminated, effective immediately due to severe insubordination and refusal to relocate, which has severely impacted business operations. To absolutely no one's surprise, my entire client portfolio, including the $50 million Crestview contract I had spent months nurturing, was officially reassigned to Violet. Sophie called me crying. It's so unfair, Gemma. It's literal daylight robbery. She just won't let you have anything. I thanked Sophie, hung up, and sat in my parked car for a full minute. Then I smiled. Not because I'd lost my job. Because someone had finally crossed a line they couldn't uncross. I joined this company to observe how an ordinary subsidiary functioned without anyone knowing who I was. I'd promised my father and uncle I wouldn't interfere unless absolutely necessary. Well, necessary had officially arrived. I dialed one number. It rang only once. Gem, my father's warm voice answered. You never call during business hours. Everything okay? I need you to promise not to interrupt until I'm finished. His tone immediately sharpened. I'm listening. For the next 10 minutes, I laid out everything. The fake daughter. The transfer order. The harassment. The firing. The stolen clients. The attempted theft of my gym membership. Silence. A dangerous, terrifying silence. Then. She called Jonathan her father? Yes. And Derek fired you? Yes. And the board knows about this? I don't think they know anything. My father exhaled slowly. Don't contact anyone else. Dad. Not one person. His voice was calm. That was infinitely more frightening than yelling. I'm calling your uncle. The line disconnected. Across Manhattan, Jonathan Stewart had just finished a breakfast meeting with international investors when his private phone rang. Only 3 people possessed that number. He answered immediately. His twin didn't even bother saying hello. Who, my father asked quietly, is Violet? Jonathan frowned. The marketing intern? Apparently she's your daughter. My what? Jonathan actually laughed. Then he heard my father's breathing. The laughter died instantly. What happened? 20 minutes later, Jonathan's executive assistant watched in horror as the famously composed billionaire stood up so abruptly his chair toppled backward. Cancel everything. Sir, your meetings. I said cancel them. The board presentation. Move it. The Singapore investors. They'll wait. For the first time in nearly 15 years, Jonathan Stewart stormed out of headquarters without another word. Meanwhile, Violet floated into the office wearing a brand new cream Chanel suit. She tossed the Crestview file onto her desk. Ladies, she announced loudly, looks like hard work pays off. Everyone applauded. Derek emerged from his corner office carrying champagne. A toast. He raised his glass. To our future vice president. The office erupted. Sophie stood alone in the back, refusing to clap. Violet noticed. What's wrong? Sophie said nothing. I said, Violet repeated sweetly, what's wrong? You stole it. The room went quiet. You stole Gemma's work. Violet rolled her eyes. If she was too weak to protect it, that's her problem. Derek nodded approvingly. Exactly. Just then. Ding. Every computer in the company displayed the same notification. Mandatory executive assembly. Attendance required. Chairman Jonathan Stewart arriving in 15 minutes. The office exploded into chaos. The chairman? He's coming here? He's never visited this branch. Derek nearly dropped his champagne. Hurry. Clean everything. Everyone look busy. Violet smirked. My dad must have heard I closed the Crestview account. She smiled smugly at Sophie. Watch him praise me in front of everyone. 15 minutes later. 6 black SUVs stopped outside. The lobby doors swung open. Jonathan Stewart entered. Behind him walked corporate legal counsel. Behind them came internal audit. Behind them. Human resources from headquarters. No one smiled. Jonathan didn't acknowledge a single employee. He walked straight through the silent office. Straight toward Violet. She beamed. Daddy. Slap. The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. Violet staggered sideways, clutching her face. Every employee froze. She stared at Jonathan in utter disbelief. Daddy? His icy gaze could have frozen fire. Don't. His voice was razor thin. Ever call me that again? The office fell into absolute silence. Jonathan slowly looked around the room. I have never had a daughter. His eyes settled on Derek. And I certainly never authorized anyone to pretend otherwise. Derek's face drained of all color. We can explain. No. Jonathan interrupted. You can explain to internal audit. He turned to the lawyers. Collect every email, phone record, payroll change, disciplinary action, and account transfer involving Miss Violet Carter and Vice President Derek Collins. The lawyers nodded immediately. Then Jonathan asked the question that made everyone stop breathing. Where? His voice was calm again. Is my niece? No one answered. Sophie slowly raised a trembling hand. Sir. You know where Gemma is? She was fired yesterday. Jonathan blinked once. Fired. Yes. For refusing. An illegal transfer. Something inside him visibly snapped. He looked toward headquarters HR. Who approved that termination? Vice President Collins. Jonathan didn't even look at Derek. Effective immediately. He spoke with terrifying precision. Derek Collins is terminated for abuse of authority, retaliation, and gross misconduct. Derek's knees nearly gave out. Security. 2 guards stepped forward. Escort him out. Then Jonathan faced Violet one final time. You wanted my name. He leaned down just enough that only the front row could hear him. You should have remembered something. What? If you were really my daughter. His expression hardened. You would have known I don't tolerate liars. As security reached for her arms, Violet screamed. No. Tell them. Tell them who I am. Jonathan answered without hesitation. You're no one to me. And for the first time since this nightmare began, the entire office realized the truth. The quiet new sales associate they'd mocked was the chairman's real family. The office was so silent that the hum of the fluorescent lights seemed deafening. Violet's mouth hung open. No, that's impossible. She twisted desperately toward the employees. He's lying. He's angry with me. No one moved. No one spoke. Not even Derek, who was now being escorted toward the elevators by security. Jonathan straightened his suit jacket. Where's Gemma? Sophie swallowed. I think she's probably at her apartment. Jonathan looked at his assistant. Send a car. I'll go myself, sir. No. His voice softened for the first time that morning. I'll apologize to her personally. The entire office stared. The chairman of Stewart Global. Going to apologize to an entry-level employee. Only now did everyone understand exactly who Gemma had been all along. Meanwhile, I was sitting on the balcony of my apartment, sipping coffee while updating my resume. My phone had been vibrating nonstop. 37 missed calls. Most were from coworkers. Several from HR. 5 from Derek. 112 unread messages. I ignored every one of them. Then my doorbell rang. I opened the door expecting a delivery. Instead, my uncle stood there. Still wearing yesterday's suit. Tie loosened. Eyes full of guilt. For a long moment neither of us spoke. Finally he sighed. I owe you an apology. I folded my arms. You do. I should have answered your calls. You should have. I was in a board meeting. I know. I didn't know someone was impersonating my daughter. I couldn't help letting out a dry laugh. I figured. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. You also deserve an explanation. I stepped aside. You'd better come in. 20 minutes later. Jonathan sat at my kitchen island, turning a coffee mug between his hands. The woman you've been calling Violet. He looked exhausted. Isn't my daughter. I know. She's the daughter of my late housekeeper. That made me pause. When Margaret died 6 years ago, she asked me to look after Violet. I paid for her university. I covered her apartment. I gave her an internship. I treated her like family because I promised her mother I would. His jaw tightened. I never imagined she'd twist that kindness into this. So why did she call you daddy yesterday? Jonathan looked embarrassed. I've corrected her for years. She always laughed and said it was just a joke. I assumed she did it in private. I had no idea she was introducing herself as my biological daughter. Pieces clicked together. The Instagram photos. The office gossip. The executive access. She hadn't started with one huge lie. She'd started with tiny assumptions. Never correcting anyone. Accepting special treatment. Letting rumors grow. Until eventually, everyone simply believed them. And Eric? I asked. Jonathan's expression darkened. He wanted a promotion. He thought keeping Violet happy would earn him my favor. So he never verified anything. He never even asked. I shook my head in disbelief. He fired me over office gossip. No. Jonathan met my eyes. He fired you because he thought power belonged to whoever stood closest to it. That afternoon, headquarters released another company-wide email. Executive notice. Effective immediately. Asterisk Vice President Derek Collins, terminated. Asterisk Violet Carter, employment terminated for fraud, impersonation, abuse of company authority, and misconduct pending further legal review. Asterisk all disciplinary actions issued against Gemma Stewart are nullified. Asterisk all commissions and client accounts are restored immediately. Asterisk an independent investigation has been opened into every promotion, transfer, and disciplinary action approved by Derek Collins over the past 3 years. The email ended with one sentence. Stewart Global maintains a zero-tolerance policy toward abuse of authority, regardless of position or personal connections. The office was in complete chaos. Employees who had laughed at me yesterday were now deleting old messages from company chats. Others were desperately trying to remember exactly what they'd said. Sophie texted me. You have to see this. She attached a photo. My desk. Completely covered in flowers. There had to be 50 bouquets. Another picture followed. Then another. Chocolate. Gift baskets. Luxury pens. Apology cards. One card simply read. I shouldn't have stayed silent. I'm sorry. Another said. Please forgive me. I was afraid of losing my job. Only one apology wasn't there. Violet's. Because she wasn't sending one. She was sitting in an interview room with corporate legal, insisting over and over that everything had been a misunderstanding. The investigators simply slid a thick stack of printed evidence across the table. Screenshots of emails. Security footage. Witness statements. Bank records showing she had repeatedly tried to redirect employee bonuses into accounts she controlled under the guise of temporary management. The lead attorney closed the folder. This stopped being a misunderstanding a long time ago. Violet's confidence finally cracked. For the first time since I'd met her. She looked genuinely afraid. The lead attorney slid one final document across the table. Violet stared at it. Notice of civil action. Her face went white. Civil action? Jonathan, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. You repeatedly impersonated a member of my family. You used my name to influence hiring decisions. You interfered with employee compensation. You attempted to redirect someone else's personal property and money. You represented yourself as someone with executive authority you did not possess. Each sentence landed like a hammer. I'm not interested in making an example out of you. He looked at her steadily. I'm interested in making sure no one else ever thinks this is acceptable. Violet's bravado evaporated. I never took any money. No, corporate counsel replied. But intent matters. You repeatedly attempted to obtain money and benefits through deception. Violet's eyes darted around the room. Please. I'm sorry. Jonathan's expression didn't change. You've been saying daddy for 6 years. You've never once called me Mr. Stewart after I asked you to. You weren't confused. You were comfortable. Meanwhile, I was back at the foundry. Roxy walked over carrying a protein shake. I figured you'd be here. I laughed. Better than doom scrolling. She leaned against the counter. So. Chairman's niece. I wondered how long you'd keep that secret. You knew? She smirked. I own a luxury gym. I know exactly who writes $25,000 checks without blinking. You also tip my staff too much. I grinned. Guilty. Before I could answer, my phone rang. It was Jonathan. Jem. Yeah? Could you come to headquarters? I've already fixed everything. I know. This isn't about that. What is it about? I'd rather tell you in person. An hour later. I walked into the executive boardroom. Every board member was present. Even my father. The moment I entered, several directors stood. One elderly board member smiled warmly. So this is the famous niece. Jonathan gestured toward the empty chair beside him. Sit. I did. He folded his hands. I owe everyone here an explanation. The room became still. For years, Gemma has refused every offer of executive placement. A few directors nodded knowingly. She insisted on entering the company anonymously. She wanted honest experience. No special treatment. No family influence. One director chuckled. I remember that argument. You called us dinosaurs. I did, I admitted. Laughter rippled through the room. Jonathan smiled faintly. And she was right. He looked around the table. This experiment exposed weaknesses in our culture that our audits completely missed. The general counsel nodded. Employees were making decisions based on perceived proximity to power rather than actual authority. The HR director added. No one verified anything. Not once. Another director sighed. That's embarrassing. Jonathan corrected him. No. It's dangerous. He turned toward me. So. What do you think our first reform should be? I hadn't expected to be asked. I thought for a moment. Anonymous reporting. Several people began taking notes. And? No executive's verbal instruction should override written policy. More notes. And? No employee should be disciplined without an independent review. The room was silent. Finally, one of the oldest directors smiled. You sound exactly like your grandmother. Jonathan laughed. That's what I was afraid of. 3 weeks later. Stewart Global announced sweeping reforms. Every transfer now required documented business justification. Nepotism disclosures became mandatory. Authority verification protocols were introduced company-wide. Executive relatives were forbidden from supervising one another directly. Anonymous ethics reports were routed to an independent committee instead of local management. Business magazines praised the company for its transparency. Inside the company, though, everyone knew the real reason. One lie had exposed a culture where too many people were willing to obey confidence instead of facts. As for me, I was offered Derek's old position. I turned it down. Jonathan stared at me across his desk. I had a feeling. I haven't finished my experiment. He raised an eyebrow. Oh? I wanted to learn how an ordinary employee becomes a great manager. You can't learn that by starting at the top. For a long moment, he simply looked at me. Then he smiled. Your father warned me you'd say exactly that. So? So. He slid a new employee badge across the desk. It wasn't an executive badge. It read. Gemma Stewart. Senior Account Executive. No mention of the family name. No special title. No privileges. Just a promotion I'd earned. Jonathan stood and straightened my badge himself. This time, he said, if anyone asks who you are. I smiled. I'll tell them the truth. He smirked. And if they don't believe you? I picked up my briefcase. Then they'll learn the hard way not to underestimate the quiet woman in the room. Over the next 2 months, everything unraveled at lightning speed. Violet's lies didn't stop with pretending to be Jonathan Stewart's daughter. Internal audit uncovered forged approval emails, fake executive directives, intimidation of employees, stolen sales commissions, manipulated performance reviews, and multiple attempts to pressure coworkers into giving her money or benefits by invoking the chairman's name. She was fired for cause. The company sued her for fraud, impersonation, and damages. Criminal investigators also opened an inquiry into documents she had falsified. Derek and 2 HR managers who knowingly helped her were blacklisted from the company after the investigation concluded. Nearly a dozen employees who had bullied or slandered Gemma received formal discipline. Those who had actively participated in harassment were dismissed, while employees who admitted their mistakes and cooperated kept their jobs after mandatory ethics training. The $50 million Crestview contract was returned to Gemma. When the client learned what had happened, they were furious that she had been removed from the project and insisted she remain their sole representative. Within 6 months, Gemma closed the deal, earning the largest commission in the subsidiary's history. Jonathan publicly announced that Gemma was his niece during the company's annual leadership conference, not to show favoritism, but to end the rumors once and for all. I'm proud of her, he told the audience. Not because she's family, but because she succeeded despite this company failing her. The room erupted into applause. Reporters quickly picked up the story of the fake billionaire daughter, and Violet became infamous online as a cautionary tale about abusing borrowed power. Every job interview after that ended the same way, employers recognized her name, and offers disappeared. Gemma, on the other hand, quietly accepted a regional leadership role a year later, one she earned through her results rather than her last name. On her first day in the new position, Sophie walked into her office carrying 2 coffees. I was wondering, Sophie said sheepishly, if your family owns any other companies that need employees. Gemma laughed. Only if you promise not to pretend to be related to us. Sophie grinned. Deal. The two clinked their coffee cups together. As for Jonathan, he never ignored another call from his niece. Whenever Gemma's name appeared on his phone, no matter how important the meeting, he answered with the same words. Hi, Gem. What trouble have you uncovered this time? And every time, it made the executives around him smile, because